Welcome to today's episode of Floaductivity. This episode has been inspired by Gabby Bernstein. I had the pleasure of being on her podcast yesterday. It won't be published for a little while. Her topic of discussion was being out of flow with the universe, or more importantly, not listening to the universe. So this episode is all about what to do when you're out of flow and how to get back into flow and connected with the universe. Thanks for being here, and I can't wait to dive in. Welcome to Floaductivity, a place to inspire and empower beings to embrace self-love and self-development for an achievable balance of productivity. I share different ways to come back to your intuition through spirituality, self-care, human design, cycle planning, wellness, and everything in between. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been here with me before, thank you so much for coming back. I'm so excited to join you in this journey as we learn together. Welcome to the episode of Floaductivity. It is all about being out of flow with the universe. And I pride myself on being in flow with the universe. But after a conversation with Gabby Bernstein, she encouraged me to do an episode on what to do when we're out of flow and how to get back in. So this episode is a little bit more of a channeled message. Sometimes I will pre-script and pre-plan out what I'm going to be speaking about, but this one is a little bit from the soul. I am grateful. This was the third time I've been on Gabby Bernstein's podcast. I have her on my vision board so that she will be on my podcast. Hopefully that will happen one day. I know that will happen one day. And so I'm going to start this episode off with a little situation that had happened a few weeks ago. I had been avoiding walking outside, and I know it's really important for me to be in the flow of creativity, to be outside and have that nature. So much so that I almost emailed the person who was going to be doing a meeting for the coaching program that I'm in, and I decided not to. Well, my next meeting right after that meeting had canceled, and I was like, okay, universe, I hear you loud and clear. I also had some things I needed to get at Target, minus children. I was like, perfect. I have a Target in walkable distance. I'm going to walk myself there, get some fresh air, and get some shopping done. Two birds, one stone. In the process of getting ready to go, I also remembered that morning I went on Facebook, which is a very rare occurrence for me, and someone very well known in the entrepreneurial online marketing space, I'm in one of her Facebook groups, and she had posted, "Go have coffee on me." And I was like, I also can go get free coffee. Okay, this is turning out to be a really great thing that I was open to, knowing that I needed to get outside, get some fresh air, and go for a walk. It's refreshing. I'm walking there. And then when I went to go pay for the coffee with this said gift card from this very influential person, I saw that I had a Facebook message. And again, if I hadn't gone on in the morning, I would never have seen this message because I don't really go on Facebook that often. So while I'm waiting for my coffee, I see that the team of this said very influential person messaged me asking if I was available to do a podcast episode. My heart sank. I already had plans that day. I obviously had walked to Target, so I wasn't right around the corner. And I am someone that prides myself on preparation, especially when it comes to having someone on my podcast. And I just, in my head, could not figure out a way to be able to reschedule, get ready for this podcast interview, and then get my interview questions available. And so it pained me to say no. And this person gets over 1 million downloads on her podcast monthly. I have 3 people on my vision board to be on my podcast, and one of them is Gabby Bernstein, and the other is this person, and her name is Amy Porterfield. And I had to say no, and I was so sad about it. I tried to call the person that I had something already scheduled for. They didn't answer. And to be honest, I stopped to see what it felt like in my gut. And because I am a sacral authority in human design, I was like, do I feel a yes? And I didn't. And so even though in my soul, it's my goal to have her on my podcast, for me to be on her podcast, I was like, it's a not right now. I can't do it right now. There's just no way. I'm going to be disappointing 2 other people to accommodate her. It's a last minute thing. And I just know I wasn't going to be able to give my best work in that scenario. And so I had to say no. And so while I was walking home, mind you, on a very busy road, because Targets are usually in a busy place, I had this moment of clarity, this thought, where it was like, it's just showing you what's possible. It's showing you what is possible in what you're working towards. And in that moment, out of nowhere, a hawk flies right in front of me. And this hawk just perches on this fence right to the right. And I'm ultimately in shock because I've never seen a hawk up close. I have never seen a hawk fly in such a busy area. And so I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the universe saying that you made the right decision, even though it was a hard decision. And so I'm still processing that I said no to that, and I'm in hopes that I get this opportunity again. And I was speaking to a peer of mine, and she said, what if you did that? And, that was it. It was a one and done. And I'm like, yeah, that would be okay. My vision is to be in a collaborative space with these people that are on my vision board. It's not a one and done. I don't want them just on my vision board. I want to be able to have multiple conversations. I want to be able to brainstorm and mastermind and really come together in solutions that can help people, because I see their values in their business and my values are aligned with that. That was a moment that I felt very much in the flow, that I was listening to my body and how I should make decisions instead of making the answer that I ultimately wanted. That is a lesson in the idea of being in the flow, is you have to listen to your body. That is the number one suggestion, because if you're not listening to your authority and how you should make decisions, you're ultimately not going to make the right decision for your soul purpose. To kind of bring this back around with the conversation I had with Gabby, was that, I'm disappointed in the hard work I put in and the return on investment. And for me, it's the return on energy. Is I'm putting so much effort and work into so many different aspects. And I get that it takes time to build something. And I keep seeing that message of, it's like that whole idea with the lottery. If you don't build it, you'll burn it down. I do know what I'm building is purposeful and it has purpose in what I'm doing, and hopefully will help other people in the process. And knowing that what is meant for me will come to me. I had that moment of knowing that I was listening to the universe, and then shortly after, I was working so hard to get my digital planner done, and I got sick, and again, life felt hard again. And the universe saying, remember when we said we were going to listen to our body? Remember when we were going to give ourselves space to reflect? And that's what is being in the flow. It's setting up those routines and those rituals so that you can connect with yourself. It's so that you can see how you feel, what your emotions are, what you're doing may impact other people. When I push through and hustle, I always end up being depleted every single time. That's my goal in this whole idea of flowductivity, is to give people the tools, build their toolkits so that they can connect with themselves, reflection, do the things to empower themselves to be the best version of themselves. I am declaring the month of January to me. I have a trip at the end of January that is a once-in-a-lifetime trip I'm very excited to take. And I've already decided that it's just going to be about me and my growth and reflection, and really make sure that the steps I'm taking are intentional for what I'm trying to build, instead of saying yes to things that I force myself to do, even if the timing's not right. I have some projects that I'm working on, and I truly believe that the universe would not have given me the ideas for these projects if they weren't meant to come to fruition. And there's not many people I can talk about these projects with, because you'll have to sign an NDA. It's knowing that when it's time, when it's going to make the biggest impact, they will come to fruition. But patience is my life lesson. Knowing when it's time to take action and when it's time to sit back and relax. And so using the flow of my cycle has really helped me understand what I should be doing when I should be planning, when I should be taking action, when I should be looking at the details of what I've done, and then the time to reflect and rest. For anyone who gets stuck in that hustle mode, the most beautiful, inspiring connections, people, resources have come to me in that time of rest and reflect. If we don't stop and give the opportunity of reflection and see how we're feeling in it, we're ultimately moving past what our body's trying to tell us. So my hopes in this episode is for you to be able to create these toolkits in each phase that you're experiencing, to give yourself a chance to make sure you're fully connected to your desires, what your soul's trying to communicate, and that will help lead you in that more fulfilling life that you desire, that I desire. So for example, I'll go through my toolkits for each phase. I'm going to start with the spring or the follicular phase and building that toolkit. And so the spring or the follicular phase starts on day number 4 to day number 7 of your cycle. And so this is the time for planning and brainstorming. My energy has not yet risen yet, so I'm not really meant to do all the things. And so it's been a lesson to learn that just because my period has ended doesn't mean I need to go pedal to the metal. Knowing that I'm just meant to kind of brainstorm and plan. And so I really utilize my digital planner at this time. Kind of sit down, meal plan. I will plan out my content. Next, we're going to do summer or ovulation. And this one can vary very much with each person, but it can really start on day number 14 and go all the way up to like day number 28. It just really depends on how long your cycle is. And so this is the time to do the stuff. This is where I record my podcasts. This is where I try to get a lot done. I am the most productive in this time, so I might kind of lump all my cleaning at this time. I just try to utilize my energy as much as possible, especially on the things I don't always love to do because I have that extra energy that I normally don't have. And so I find that those things that I don't love to do will deplete my energy, but if I do it during this time, it checks it off the box and gets it done, gets it out of the way. In this toolkit, I like to make sure I spend some time in nature, move my body more. I also really like to dive deeper into courses and resources. So the next phase is the luteal or the fall phase. And in the beginning of this phase, I still have a lot of that energy that I did in the summer phase. So you have to pay attention to when you're in the beginning of the luteal or when you're in the end, because when you're in the end, you have more of that winter energy. This is when I really try to do more reflection. So I will walk outside, I will voice diary, so I will ultimately just talk while I'm walking. Sometimes I record it, sometimes I don't. Or I'll journal. I give myself a lot of extra time for self-care because you're about to go into your menstruation. So you just really want to make sure you're caring for yourself and you're not depleted going into menstruation because your symptoms will become worse. That's my experience with that. It's just starting to take the things off your plate and understanding that you're going into the time of resting during your menstrual phase. And then lastly, your menstrual phase, that starts day number 1 of your bleed, but I prepare for it about 4 to 5 days ahead of time. That's just what I need for my body. In all of this, you really have to start listening to the signs of your body so that you can understand your phases of your cycle. I would always get held up on the fact that I would start to deplete my energy so far before my period. And when I fought it, my symptoms got worse. I just had a harder time being in the normal life. And when I honor it and understand that my body is just built that way, things have gotten easier and I become more in the flow of my body. So that when I go into menstruation, I really am resting. And that is just where I read a lot more. I just take it easy. I don't do that much. I don't make plans. That's the biggest one. I don't make plans. I avoid plans at all costs if I can. Sometimes that doesn't always line up when you have 2 small kids, but How many times summer or ovulation care has signed up for plans in the wintertime? I get mad and I resent myself for that. And so knowing that there's just a certain time period that if people are going to get the best part of me, it's not in that time period. And so it just gives me more opportunity to rest. My goal in all this is to just start listening to what your body wants and needs in each phase of your cycle so that you can be in more flow and understand that when we push ourselves past the point, when we hustle past the point of our body, we'll end up depleted, like with the flu, and sick, and we're not able to give our best versions of ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed this episode on how to get back into the flow of life. Thank you, Gabby, for this inspiration to have this episode. I know one day she'll be listening to my podcast. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak with Gabby on her podcast, and I know many more opportunities like that will come. Thank you so much for joining. If you found this episode helpful, please share with a friend. That helps me so much. If you want to learn more, please check the show notes, and all the resources mentioned will also be there as well. And we will chat soon.